Yo, what's up guys, Jack here, and today I'm bringing you my overall multiplayer gameplay impressions of Titanfall 2. All of the footage you'll see here is from a capture event that took place recently on the PS4 technical test beta version of the game. With that said, let's get stuck in and see what we're working with. Firstly, if you like Titanfall 1, you will almost certainly like the second game. The core element of the game is still there. Fast player movement combining double jumps and wall runs and giant titans all roaming around the same level. What made the first game great is still here in bundles, but there's also plenty of improvements that people wanted to see. So here we played 3 game modes: Bounty Hunt, Pilot vs Pilot and Amped Hardpoint. 3 very different game modes and some that were in the original game in some form or another. Let's start with Pilot vs Pilot. This wasn't in the base Titanfall game but was added down the line with a slightly different name. It was called Pilot Skirmish. Now called Pilot vs Pilot, it allows 16 players to face off against each other with no titans. 8 vs 8, just pilot infantry skill. You would think that this would make for a very uninteresting game mode, though considering the game is called Titanfall, it's about titans and there isn't any in this game mode, but surprisingly this seemed to be the mode that players kept wanting to play at the events where we tested the game. Could that be because it's more alike to say something like Call of Duty, where there are no titans? Perhaps. The game mode itself has no objectives other than killing, so it's just team deathmatch for pilots, but I would much rather see just the pilots only mode for the other game modes too. Therefore it would still allow you to have objective gameplay but with just pilots if that's your cup of tea. And then we have Amped Hardpoint, which is for the most part the same as Hardpoint that was in the original game, but with one big difference. Each point can be captured twice to amp it, doubling the points that it grants. So let's say you capture point A, you'll now gain a point per second for holding that point. However, if you can stick on the flag, capture it essentially a second time, and that's going to amp it, meaning it now gains you 2 points a second instead. If you leave the flag though, the amp status will slowly reduce, so you've got to be smart about how you hold it and ensure that you get back to it before the amp status depletes, or you'll then have to recap it again to get the double points reward. It's quite an interesting mechanic really that promotes players standing around the flag to defend it, and I enjoyed playing Hardpoint quite a bit. If your team can hold 1 point amped all of the game, even if the other flags are changing hands, you can still stand a good chance of winning the game. Defense is key, and it's kind of a mix of domination with King of the Hill. We had some pretty close games because of this new mechanic. Lastly, we've got Bounty Hunt, the one completely new game mode that we got to try. I experienced this briefly when I played the game at EA Play, and so if you weren't at one of the EA Play events, then maybe you've not played this mode or seen it, but it's had a significant change to it since. This game mode sees both teams fighting to kill waves of AI enemies for cash. Marked points on the map will spawn neutral AI, and you need to kill them. Both teams will be fighting over the AI though, because killing them is awarding cash for your team. At the end of the wave, you've got to head back to a banking point, which is a giant spider-like machine, to bank your money. If you're killed though before you've banked your cash, your killer steals half of your money. You can only bank your money at the end of a wave when the bank is open. There are also AI bounty titans dropped into the waves, and if you can take them down, you gain a big cash boost for your team. Despite people hating on the AI in the first game, I think this gave it a real purpose, and it was actually a really tense game mode, trying to get back to a bank station to score your cash, or just forgetting about it and realizing that you just undid all of your hard work. Bounty Hunt moves us on quite nicely in fact to AI. Something you may have noticed from the footage is that apart from Bounty Hunt, which revolves around enemy AI, there's no more AI actually roaming around the maps. Pilot vs Pilot and Amped Hardpoint had no AI whatsoever, and in fact, unless the game mode calls for it, there will be no more AI in sight at all. I'm afraid that means no more hacking spectres and gaining yourself a small army. Those days are long gone. It's worth pointing out as well that each game mode has a different player count. Pilot vs Pilot is 8 vs 8, but Bounty Hunt for instance is 5 vs 5. The player count depends on the mode you're playing, which is good to see. The movement in Titanfall 2, as you would expect, is still a big deal. You can still double jump, wall run and piece together some epic movements around the map, and this time you've got an extra ability to use in the grapple hook. This can latch onto pretty much any surface and propel you forward. You can swing under bridges, swing around corners, pull yourself up to a ledge, or even grapple an enemy player or titan. It really adds another element to the movement and it feels really natural to use. You've of course got plenty of other abilities to get stuck into. Cloak will make you invisible, Stim will give you health and speed boost, and the new new Holo Pilot sends off a hologram clone in your place to trick enemy players. Pulse Blade also allows you to see enemies with sonar. Even still, with all those choices, I found myself not wanting to give up the grapple, especially considering that even though the movement in Titanfall 2 is still great, your character has way more weight to them this time. You seem to jump a little slower and not quite as high, so I feel a little more vulnerable with some of the other abilities, like say Pulse Blade. What's cool though is that your player model visually looks different depending on what ability you pick. A nice little touch of that, and it can also enable eagle-eyed players to spot what abilities players have by noticing what character model they are, therefore changing their game style because of it. Titans, very important, and they've also had a bit of an overhaul. We've been introduced to 3 of them so far, Ronin, Ion and Scorch, but there are at least 3 more to come apparently. Each Titan has its own set of abilities and weapons that can't be changed, so they'll always have a unique style. They've all got different shells as well, so the smaller Titans may have lots of boosts at their disposal, whereas some of the bigger versions may have none at all. Each Titan can then have a few things tweaked through kit options. You can add a bubble shield, an extra dash, or have the option to have a more lethal auto Titan. There are a few small things you could change here and there, but the core of the Titan is all based on the one that you pick, so it's kind of like choosing a hero in a way. Expect to see some cosmetic Titan items too when the game releases. In terms of anti-Titan weapons that you get when you're a pilot, I felt like they were a lot weaker this time around, and there were also some big changes to rodeoing enemy Titans. This time around, if you get on top of an enemy Titan, you do a set animation rather than firing into the circuits for as long as you want. First time you jump on, you're going to steal the Titan's battery and then jump off with it. Now you either do nothing with that battery, or you can hop on a friendly Titan and give it to them. This will either increase their health if they're damaged, or give them a small overcharge if they're not. If the enemy Titan pilot manages to kill you though, they can actually hop out and pick their battery back up to give their Titan its health back. Pretty cool. If the Titan that you're rodeoing has already had its battery taken out though, you'll do an animation of throwing a grenade into the Titan's hatch. You'll then automatically jump off and do a set amount of damage. You don't use your own grenades though, so don't worry if you haven't got one equipped. It's still going to do the animation and throw the grenade. In terms of weapons, we've got some that we saw in the first game, such as the Car SMG or the Kraber sniper rifle, but then there are some new weapons like the double tap sniper or the L-Star LMG, which fires lasers. I've been told that there's plenty of weapons to choose from on release, something that was definitely a big problem with the first game, so I'm interested to see exactly how many they managed to cram into Titanfall 2. Overall, I have to say I had a lot of fun playing this game. The gunplay felt solid, the Titans felt good, but I do worry that after the game's release that you might see a similar pattern to Titanfall 1, where players will just leave their Titans on automatic mode and run around on the ground doing infantry instead. I hope there's some real incentive to stick with your Titan. Movement though felt good, and there seems to be way more weapons and attachments this time around to get stuck into. I've been told there will be cosmetic customization for both pilots and Titans as well, which will definitely be more than welcomed. I am however disappointed to report that there will be no ranked play on launch. It's something I hoped for, but the developers want to gauge interest in it before going forward. One of the other problems with the first game had was a lack of game modes, and it seems that that's going to be resolved as well, thankfully. As long as we can get some of the main game modes that were added into Titanfall 1 post-release as well as the ones that we've already seen, we should be heading in the right direction here. Of course, we've got single player on top as well. We've already heard how they've made big improvements to the matchmaking system, so this time hopefully you shouldn't be left in a lobby for a lifetime waiting for a game, or in an unbalanced lobby where it's 5v3 or 4v1, which used to happen a lot on the first Titanfall game. One of the problems post-release though was how the DLC split the matchmaking, and that's a non-issue though this time because guess what? All DLC for Titanfall 2 is going to be free. I'm looking forward to the tech test, which is happening soon, and then of course the game's full release in October. As always, thank you for watching guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on Titanfall 2. Like what you're seeing, don't like what you're seeing. Have they done enough here to improve on the first game? As always, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, a thumbs down if you didn't, and I'll see you in the next one.